Gabrie'l, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk a little bit about, or at least just draw attention to um, your educational background, the
Mm,
degrees that you hold, share a bit about your adjunct professorship.
hmm
And that sounds like that's been quite a journey. If I did the
hmm
math correct, it's been over a course of 15 years, and
Yes.
you have taught at a lot of institutions.
hmm
So I want to speak about those for a moment,
Okay.
and and then we'll kind of dive into some other stuff that we've been talking about. So you have a PhD in women's studies from Clark University. Gabrie'l has a master's degree in religion with a WGSSS concentration. Would you tell us what that acronym stands for?
Yes. Women, gender, and sexuality studies.
Okay. At Yale Divinity School. Yes, I'm jealous. A master's degree in African American studies from Temple. Equally jealous. And a BA in African American studies from Brown University. So, wow,
Mm.
that's a lot of time in libraries.
Yes.
I bet you have a deep appreciation for
Oh
librarians.
my goodness. Yeah. You have that path that you would have gone on if you could do it all
Oh,
over
wow.
again. Yeah.
That's what you would have done.
MLS. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So let's talk about these schools that you've done the adjunct teaching positions held. DeVal University, and that's present. So you're currently teaching there. DeVille, I'm a little challenged on the pronunciation
Yeah.
because
It's strange. So Juville.
okay.
Yeah. And I was
Oh, that's
teaching
it. Juville. Okay.
Juville. I don't know why, but that's how they
All right.
pronounce
All right. Starts
it.
with a D.
You did? Yes. Right now, well, I was at SUNY Brockport
Hmm.
last. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
after Juville.
Wells College, the college at Brockport. It's a SUNY school, the State University of New York. The NJ Seeds, which is a scholars program, is that New Jersey? NJ.
Yeah. Mm,
Okay. Buffalo State College, Erie Community College, University of Bridgeport, Montclair State University, College of New Rochelle, University of Connecticut, New Jersey City University, and Rutgers University. Wow,
mhm.
you have read a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And the name of this podcast is Too Many Flags. Too Many Flags. And we'll talk about that and maybe the origin of that title and also some thoughts that Gabrie'l has about that. But I want to start with it really, to me, it matters where people live.
Mm,
And Gabrie'l lives in the great state of New York, and she lives in Kenmore, New York. And I thought you might get a kick out of this. So I went and did a little research on Kenmore.
nah.
And maybe this is AI, but the question is on Google: is Kenmore, New York, a good place to live? And here's what they said:
Okay.
Kenmore is a suburb of Buffalo with a population, this is according to the census of like 2020, 15,155 people. Kenmore is in Erie County and is, in bold print, one of the
Mm,
best places to live in New York. So I'm
okay.
going to let you take it from there. How in the world did you end up in Kenmore? Where did you start?
Well, I was originally born in New York City, and I had a really long journey through education in Boston area. Returned to school, was in the New Haven area. I met a woman who lived in Buffalo, and I came to visit her out here. I loved it. It felt like it had a little bit of college town, a little bit of hippie. It was just an interesting place. And I was looking for somewhere to go or a movement for my life, and it seemed like an area that had a lot of state colleges. We have a SUNY State University of New York system, and a lot of colleges and universities are concentrated in this area. And I'm a professional adjunct professor, if that's a thing. And so I'm always looking for areas that have a lot of potential jobs. And so I came out this way. And it was just by chance at Craigslist looking for some place to live that I found this really great apartment. And it just happened to be in Kenmore. And I knew nothing about Kenmore before I moved here. It just seemed like a really nice place, tree lined streets. It's not quite suburb. It's sort of like the place where you move up from the city. Maybe you buy your first house. It has a working class, we've bought our own house kind of feel to it, as opposed to suburbs, which tend to be a little bit more sprawling and it's just, it's a nice, comfortable place to live. And so I didn't really know too much about it when I arrived. And
Hmm.
then I would tell people, I live in Kenmore, and they would go, "Oh." And
Right.
so then
Not
I started hearing
not good.
stories. Yeah. So apparently, I don't know what's happening now, but for a while, Kenmore was had a reputation of being somewhat of a sundown town. So people are often surprised that I live in
Hmm.
Kenmore. We have a very segregated city, so there's a really concentrated area of African American people on the east side of Buffalo. So if you know about the shooting that happened at a Tops grocery store, that's the neighborhood where most African Americans live. So if you live in Buffalo and you're African American, most people assume that you live in the east side of Buffalo. And it's not that it's people don't live outside of that area, it's just sort of a reputation. So I still don't really know too much about Kenmore except that, people just kind of from their response, it seems like maybe in the past, there have been some incidents, or maybe things are
Hmm.
going on now. It definitely has sort of a colorful history.
And you've been there for how long now?
I've been here in this area in general, about 8 years.
Oh gosh,
That's
wow.
about it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So for me, that's a record of staying in one place.
So let's go to the podcast title. You told me that you wanted me to ask you this question. Why do you like the title Too Many Flags? Why did that appeal to you?
Yeah, so I had two answers for that, and hopefully, they're connected. And then if they aren't, you can help me connect them. But
Okay.
when I first moved here, and my mother came to visit the first time, as we were driving down the street, she said, "Oh, there's too many flags." And for her, like seeing too many American flags connected, like she thought that that meant that people here are racist. Like she
Mm.
connects seeing the flag with racism, and understand that like for older African American people that it symbolized something like within her. She's assuming that, the people in the houses are having a kind of idea about who is American, who belongs, who doesn't
Mm.
belong, that kind of thing. And I told you a little bit about the makeup of our Buffalo. So Buffalo has a large African American population, but they tend to be concentrated in a segregated part of the city. And then, as time moved on, redlining became less effective, not completely, ineffective, but people started to move out of that area. There's some hostility outside of that area. So when you're in the suburb, this is kind of a there can be kind of a tense relationship between people. But for her, just the flag, the American flag, meant that. And then the other reason I thought it was interesting is I was thinking about the image of January 6th. If you look at a still shot of that moment of the protest, of the insurrection, there were so many American flags, but there also were other kinds of flags that represented things. There are, images of hate or symbols of hate. There were Trump flags, there were American flags, there were lots of Jesus, Christian ideology, and it was just all mixed up in there. But that idea of too many flags made me think about that still image of
Mm.
all of
Mm.
those flags representing like an us and them idea of America, or an us and them idea of this country, of patriotism, that somehow, and like I said, I'm hoping you can help me draw it out. I think those two things are connected. The way
Oh
that
yes.
this like my mother and maybe the people at the protest have the similar idea about what the flag is representing, and who, when you see it as an older African American woman
Hmm.
having experienced racism, you're hearing sort of the dog whistle that the people were, trying to portray on the lawn. So yeah, those were the two. When we were talking initially, I was definitely thinking about my mother's response to this new
Hmm.
neighborhood that I was living in. So where
Hmm.
I'm driving down the street thinking, oh, this is nice. It's got some trees, and it's a really, and she's thinking, oh,
Yeah.
this will be
Mother saw
dangerous.
something else.
Right. She saw something very different. So
Mm.
that was my initial thought. But then when I went to think about it some more, I was thinking about that image of that day.
Yeah, I think it's very. I think it's very connected. I
Yeah.
don't think it needs any other explanation. I'm curious.
Okay.
How old is your mother?
She's 81. Yeah.
Is the has her not opinion, but her experience with the flag has that changed, or would it always have been not just too many flags, but even one flag meant
Yeah,
something to mother?
I think so. I think that she would always have felt that way. She was very impacted by images of like lynchings in the past where the flag was there. She talks about that a lot. Over, whenever we talk about that as a topic or just the symbol of America meaning something deeper and, not necessarily positive for her in her life. Yeah, so she probably would always have felt that way.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just to tell the listening audience, and I already told you how I came to that title was I had a conversation with a woman who was probably within years of being 80, might have
Hmm.
been 80, and I was here in Oregon, and I was kind of checking out the community, and I knew the question was going to draw some kind of response.
Yeah.
And I said what I said to this older woman. We were having a really nice conversation, and I said, well, too many flags make me nervous.
Hmm.
And boy, did things turn.
Yes, yes.
She gave me a schooling on that
Yeah.
about flags and guns
Mm.
and queers. It just
Right.
really
Right.
it went from 0 to 100 so
Wow.
fast. Yeah, so that's how we came, and it's got kind of a roll to it too. Too many flags.
No, it's good. I
It's got
like
a good role. Really interested about as I get to know you and I look at the things you devoted yourself to,
it.
Gabrie'l. Can you talk about the work that you've done and that you're currently doing, and even that you hope to do more of,
Mm.
to bring together, people in this political, this divisiveness, this attack mode to
Mm-hmm.
things like that conversation I had with that woman on a
Yeah.
in a small little town of Oregon. It got aggressive so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. People are emotional about it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Very, very
And
emotional.
the history that people, well, like your mother, the history
Mm-hmm.
that somebody brings into
Mm-hmm.
their current perspective. But I'm interested in the work that you have been doing, want to do more of, to
Yeah.
somehow connect people.
Yeah. So I did move here to teach, and I was teaching. But in addition to that, when I first arrived, there was an Episcopal church that needed a secretary during the summer, and adjuncts always have to find something creative to do during the summer. So I went to work at this church. And at the end of the summer, so there's a large Episcopal church called Trinity in like sort of in center of Buffalo. I ended up staying because I just really love the community so much. And then just kept becoming, it just stayed in that community. So I was there. I also worked at another Episcopal church later on. And then I ended up at the diocesan
Mm.
office, which is like the administrative hub of all of the
Yes.
area. And in the time, it was, we were bringing together Western New York and Northwestern Pennsylvania. We call ourselves the Rust Belt. With this area, very it's conservative. It's very white, working class. We've got a really good mixture of urban and rural and suburban churches up and down this one region of the country. But I just sort of put myself in the middle of their community. So even after I was no longer working there, I'm still connected with many of the clergy and some of the other people who are working on anti-racism things within the Episcopal Church.
Mm.
And I'm finding, so this Saturday we had like a training with a group called the Commission to Dismantle Racism and Discrimination. And so sometimes I'll do things that are more formal. People ask me, hey, come and speak or come and, talk to us about something. So Saturday's event was more formal and we brought some different people together. They have liaisons at the different churches who want to work on anti-racism. They come together, get some resources. So that's one thing that I seem to do. And like you, they had read something that I wrote and thought, we want you to come talk to us a little bit more
Mm.
about this thing that you wrote in 2020, which was about being a self-consciously white congregation. So if your congregation is predominantly white, like just not embracing it, but just accepting that and working from that reality, and then figuring out what you can do to leverage your
Mm.
privilege, or just trying to think about it differently instead of worrying about trying to integrate at this level. Our communities are segregated. We can't really do much about that. So that's
Mm.
what that was about. The other thing is more informal. We had a small group. come together. My mother's in that group. And it's a pretty interracial group of people. We read one book and then people said we want to stay together. So I think at this point we've read 12 or 13 books together. And we
Oh
try to
my! And how many
choose,
people are in this group, Gabrielle?
like, ebb and flow, but it seems to be about, we can get about 8
Mm,
folks come in. It is one of the only interracial things that I do. Either it's me with white people or it's all black people, but this is just the way that it is here. This group is integrated and we've got a nice range of ages, and we've developed this trust with each other and are able to have just open and honest conversations about what we're reading. The reading keeps us centered on, theory. Sometimes we read something together that's a little bit thick, and so we're able to pull it apart and think about it.
mm, mm.
Sometimes it's more emotional, and everybody's coming from a different perspective. And it just really, I think that's the kind of thing I enjoy the teaching, but that's the kind of thing I really want to do is to get faith-based people talking about, you know, issues that of concern, of racism, other social justice issues, but in settings that are intimate, are comfortable.
Yes.
Um, One of the things we talked about on Saturday was like having dinner discussions. It's similar to that, like getting together over a meal and developing that trust with a group of people and having those kinds of conversations. It's not the bigger picture saving the world. It's just sort of like, microcosm. And it
Yeah, I was
feels
going to
good.
say that's
Yeah.
and that's definitely qualifies for a small group, doesn't it? 8 people.
Yeah.
Do you always meet in the same place? Meet in people's homes? Kind of move
We
around?
meet on Zoom because when we started, my mother and some other people were not in my mother's in New York City, so people are somewhat spread out. Now she's the only one that's not here. We could get together locally in person. We were together online because it was COVID.
Yeah.
But once she was involved, we didn't feel right meeting without her, so we stayed
Oh,
online. Yeah, so that's been nice.
how does that feel to you to be in a group with your mother? How does that feel?
It is amazing because she doesn't really. A couple of times she said things to me she has never said about her own life. She talked to me about, like, she was talking to us in a casual conversation about her grandmother, stories I had never heard. So I think there's something about the setting that makes her able to, or maybe she's just getting older and she's starting to just say things. But yeah, she had told us that she met James Baldwin. I never heard that.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
I was just like, how are you not? How have you just
That'd be like
after
meeting
that? Like,
Elvis or somebody. How did you not tell the story
how
at the
could you
family
not
reunion
tell it
that you met
right?
Elvis?
You didn't wait till, yeah. So like stuff like that has been happening. I'm a middle child of, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Sure.
I'm the other one. So I have two sisters who are a squeaky wheel, and I'm sort
Mm,
of not. When we're together, we just don't know what to even say to each other. But when we're in this group, we're having these great
interesting.
conversations. So that has been, if nothing else, just that alone has been really
Mm.
great.
Yeah, you can access a different part of mother, if you will, in
Yeah.
that setting. And
No, that's been amazing. She says she reads and that is helping her not feel old because she's now
oh,
reading all these books, and yeah, so that's been awesome.
that's great.
Yeah.
Could you speak for a few minutes about that group in regards to the level of trust and how long has the
Mm.
group been meeting, by the way? I think you said
Oh,
earlier.
I think we started in 21.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
How has trust
Mm.
developed?
Mm.
Because this is an interracial group.
Yes.
I would assume everybody came wanting to integrate.
Yeah.
But then
And
how have you witnessed, and maybe even if you have a story of
mm.
somebody realizing something about their own bias, their own racial stuff going on that got
Yeah.
disclosed in the group, but it was a safe container to hold it. Just wondering about the issue of trust.
Yeah. I think so on Saturday, the group that was there was a man who's a clergy person in one of the congregations. He was part of our group towards the beginning, and apparently, when we had a breakout rooms, this must have been a much bigger setting. We had some kind of a breakout room, and he said something that really he's a white clergy person. He made this African American woman really, really angry, and she didn't hold back. She just really let him have it. And then he came back and apologized. So he was telling this story on Saturday. I'm hearing this for the first time. This probably happened in 21. But he's telling this story to the group just as an example of like, being humble in a situation or getting it wrong and coming back and apologizing. So he came back, he apologized to the woman, and then she said that it was the first time a white man had apologized to her for
Mm.
something that he said, and how amazing that situation was for him. And he never came back, but the woman who stayed in the group talks about that quite often. Like that was a moment that really worked
Wow.
for both of them. It is rare. It's not just rare for me, it's just rare in general that this kind of space happens here. You have to be very, very intentional. I've been in a few spaces like that, but it's usually like one or the other. And this is one of the spaces where everybody comes together. I think that people have said they're able to say things, they're careful, on both sides. And when they say something, I think just having the space to be able to say things when no one's going to jump over you or, say anything to you that's shame you or throw you out, just that alone makes people a little bit more courageous in the things that they say. The other thing is, I think it was good for us to stay focused on a book. So it's almost like I'm not getting on a call telling you something. We're reading it together.
Mhm.
And then you
Mm.
can say, this person went too far, or I totally agree with it, but it's different from like someone coming to yell at you about racism. It's like, here's this person's analysis. What do you think about it? Kept us focused in a way. Yeah, but there's one woman for a long time I felt like we're hitting a brick wall here. This is not None of this stuff we're talking about is penetrating at all. Like we just week after week, and it's just like this is what's happening. This isn't going in. It's not. It's the same. She would say the same kind of thing,
Mhm.
every time, and then eventually the breakthrough happened, and we were all there together to like hear her say some things that people had been saying to her. Now it was coming out of her. Now
Wow.
she's in her church telling people, and they're thinking, "What has happened to you? You're crazy." So we've seen this whole like transformation with this one person in particular who had moved all the way from like, brick wall to sort of a breakthrough.
Mm.
Even at brick wall, she came. Like, she just kept coming. So to me, that was everything. Even though she, clearly not getting any of the stuff that we're talking about, not agreeing with anything, she kept coming back.
Mm.
And then eventually it was like, oh, wow, now she's correcting us. Like, she's telling us stuff and is bringing articles and telling us about movies and telling us about, things that she's experiencing. So I talk about her a lot in my, if there was like a goal, not that there is one, besides like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get to talk to my mother every week, it's really nice. But if there were a goal, I mean, that I could see someone transform, I don't want to sound like it's an evolution and somewhere high and everybody else, I don't want to make it sound like that at all, but it just felt like she was looking for something and she found it. Yeah.
And the people in the space
Mm-hmm.
created an environment for that to
I
happen.
think so.
Well, she kept coming back, right?
She
So
did.
she,
She felt
she
safe
wasn't
enough.
shunned.
Mm-mm.
She wasn't alienated. She was
No.
welcomed. Maybe even people were struggling with her being there, but she was invited back. She was
Yeah.
part of the group. That's true community building, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing us to have a little view into the group. Anything else you want to say about your work? You spoke about it in the Episcopal setting. Anything else?
Yeah.
Maybe how about in the university setting?
Was the other thing that just briefly that I have these spaces that do feel empowering and like transformation is happening, but then I also encounter some spaces where there's a lot of rigid thoughts and like that wall that I talked about with the woman,
Mm-hmm.
but that is not penetrated. Working with the students feels like they feel, what I wrote down for myself was flexible. Like working with young people, they feel flexible, like there's still some room in there for them not to be rigid like the older people that I'm engaged with. So I have these, I'm on this weird bridge where I'm like older than the students, younger than the the church
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
yeah, so the younger people feel like, yeah, there's a flexibility there. And I start to feel like this half of my role is engaging with them and embracing and helping them nurture that flexibility.
Mm.
It's not about right and wrong or, you know, calling people out or anything like that. It's about helping them maintain flexible ideas. It's not indoctrination. There's a lot of criticism around issues, women and gender studies, like we're indoctrinating kids, but it's more just like helping them not become older, rigid people.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right.
whatever
Right.
happened to this group over here, I feel like we're, as educators, as intervention over here. Like if we can just do that, we're giving them the information, and I do this whole speech at the beginning of every class, like you don't have to agree with me, you don't have to agree with the textbook, you don't have to agree, with each other, but you do have to respect, I start classes like that because I know a lot of these diversity classes and a diverse professor is, they may think I have to just say what she wants to hear. Or so the work with this group made me take my educator role a lot more seriously because I don't want the younger generation to lose that the ability. They talk to each other from different sides, yelling without putting each
Mm.
other down. Like they're not even on sides. They're sharing the ideas. It's not polarized. It's not, it's not attack. It's curiosity. It's still there. And a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is just new. They have never heard about it. So that's the other part of it. If you bring that new information to groups of people who are rigid, there's resistance right away. But if you bring it to this younger group, there's a lot of flexibility. Yeah, that's all. The other thing I want to say was that the one kind of work made me take the other kind of work a little
Mm.
bit more seriously.
Tell me if this resonates. In my mind, I'm thinking about you. I'm going to create an imaginary setting that maybe you've actually been in. Imagine you've got 15 or 20, and the age range is anywhere from 18 to 65. And it's a book club, and they've asked you to come in.
Mm-hmm.
They've read one of your books, so they've seen the classes that you've taught, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody talked you up and they said, hey, bring Gabrie'l in. And let's say there's 17, 18, all white people. And one person asks, a 45-year-old male asks you, tell me something new
Mm.
about racism
Mm.
that you would assume I don't know about. And I'm pretty well read, and I claim to be woke, but I know I have blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning over the course of the last year that I need to be in learner mode.
Yeah.
Would you tell me something tonight that I don't know about being an African American woman in this world?
Mm.
Too many flags, too whatever. What do you think
Yeah.
you might say to that 45-year-old white male?
I'm starting to feel is that a lot of the times things that are coming out as racism, it's like a low hanging fruit of some other deeper painful experiences. Like it's a self hatred or a insecurity. It's emotional is what I think. So I heard a story about a guy. He was saying that his mother, his parents are white, he's a white person, his parents are white, his white mother had to go to a mental institution. While she was there, she fell in love with a black man and left the father to marry this black man. So the father is telling his son all of this N word and this negative, just, the curse, just the just being really nasty about the guy. And so he grew up with this attitude about like my dad is, racist and stuff like that. But what I was hearing was the pain of having his wife leave him for someone. It wouldn't have really mattered what color the guy was, that his wife left him for somebody else. And that racism was more like a shield to not have to deal with the emotion of that.
Hmm.
So I feel like in this country that sometimes people are upset about economic situations or feeling insecure about their abilities or some other issue that is more emotional, and the racism is almost like a go-to or a thing that, we always kind of, yeah, it's because of this, that group or this group and this name and that name, but it's not even, it isn't what what it seems to be on the surface. And so what I like, and I was talking about this on Saturday, were these things called somatic abolition, where people are talking about like meditation and stopping and breathing and thinking about your body and the response that you're having in your body because of the presence of a person of color in the room. My anti-racism, the fantasy anti-racism kinds of things that I would want to do are not about information or even narratives. It's more about like, who are you? And nobody wants to talk about that. No one of any age wants to talk about like what's your deep pain and what are you dealing with emotionally. But I think that that's where we are with this conversation. We have all of the information. We have the dates in the history. We have, the language and the tools, and we have all that stuff. And the racism persists because there's still like this level of emotion. We're dealing with the thoughts, like we're dealing with brains and thinking, but it's really emotion. And they would run me out. They wouldn't want to hear about that. No one ever really does, but that's where I think we are. What is it about this person that makes you feel uncomfortable about yourself? The thing that we keep talking about is sum zero. If you have something, then I can't have it, or it takes something away from me. If you have something, then I don't have it. Like there's this a sum zero. There's only so much. So, I've had more than you. If you get more, then that means I have to give mine away. Yeah. So hopefully I would have it more together than that. But that's where I would go. That's what I always want to talk about. And it's very rare that anybody wants to talk about any of that.
Well, I'm glad we got to that. I definitely connect with the buried pain piece, but I had never, to my recollection, I had never connected that to the low-hanging fruit of how racism and that can just so quickly bond.
Yes. Yeah.
So I want to imagine in my hopeful self that 45-year-old white male would say, I have some things to think about. I have some things to think about. Yeah. And then hopefully we would hope that he would have a safe place. Because as John O'Donohue says, the great Celtic poet who left us way too early, it is difficult and slow to become new. It is difficult and slow to become new. And that's just so true. Yeah. It feels at times unfortunate because it seems like, wait, time's running out and there's so much at stake.
Right.
But if somehow, I think if we could all share in the reality of, it takes a while to become new. Yeah. And it's a slow journey. And that sure challenges everything, not everything, but most things we see on the internet that you can buy today and be new tomorrow. And it's like, well,
that's true.
Good luck.
Yes, right.
I've got one question left for you, but I want to do something to honor one of your readers. There's a reader out there that reads you, and I was chatting with her, and she wanted to draw attention to one of your 2-minute reads.
Okay.
So I said, I absolutely will do that.
Okay.
So I'm sure you get people reading your work back to you. But this was your 2-minute read. And by the way, I've yet to ever reach the status of being a podcaster that has commercials and those kind of things, selling, trying to sell something or whatever, and people financially. But I can have my own commercial. So I'm going to run a commercial right now for Gabrie'l.
Okay.
And I want you to remind us at the end where people can come and subscribe to your monthly, we'll call it newsletter.
Okay.
But it's them getting your readings, and it's affordable, folks. But this was one of your 2-minute reads from August 1st of 2024 called Sticks and Stones. And I'm going to read back a little piece. Okay. This was one of her, if not her favorite, of your 2-minute reads that she's been reading. I don't know if she's archived, because you started those back how long ago?
In about 2 years.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. I think she's kind of new as a reader, but this Sticks and Stones, she said, I'll just pick one of them, but I could tell she wanted me to pick this one. So I'm going to read a portion of what you wrote. Okay. In 1956, women in South Africa sang a protest song in their struggle against PASS laws, PASS laws. And the lyrics said, end quote, "Now you have touched the women. You have struck a rock. You have dislodged a boulder. You will be crushed. And then you went on to say, that's end of quote. And you went on to say, I believe that Donald Trump is about to learn some very difficult lessons in the next
Yes.
few months. So speak to us, Gabrie'l.
Okay, let me start from Black women. Black women are known to be a very powerful block of voters, and historically, for hundreds of years, Black women are just amazing in terms of organizing and motivating groups of people to get organized and vote. And so that's settled. I feel like that's fine. The group that I am really excited about and have been excited about since Hillary Clinton are white women. And the reason I feel like they are very powerful is because they are, in general, their votes are not being suppressed. And I think that Roe v. Wade being overturned is that I forgot how it begins, but that's the that's the rock that's been dislodged, and we haven't seen yet what that's going to look like once women, not necessarily in the blue states, but in the red states where this has become more of an extreme backlash against women's rights and women's reproductive justice. That's what I'm waiting to see, this moment when white women, maybe together in collaboration with peoples of color and other groups, and maybe just on their own as a block, decide that this is it. Like, we're going to vote for our best interests this time. And for me, that's not Donald Trump, but everybody has their own. But I feel like where we're going, and it's going to be very powerful in a way that, like, maybe we haven't seen since the 100-year struggle to get suffragists to work to get the right to vote. Like, we're getting ready to see something really. I'm excited about it. You can tell from what I'm answering. I'm just so excited. I can't wait to see what it looks like after that and where we go with it. But that's what I'm. And then JD Vance said something about childless cat women.
Oh,
And now
goodness.
everybody's just up in arms. And so it's just.
I saw your post today with the two ladies, the one on the ukulele.
Yeah, people are making
No, she's actually on a
songs
mandolin.
and everything, and I'm just like, this is about to be really. And I'm not taking anything away from Black women's organizing, but this is going to be something that we have not seen in our time, and I'm into it. I'm here for it. I love it.
My question before I have the final question, and that is, when you feel in your body, speaking of those somatic responses,
Yes.
when you feel disgust and hatred, share as much as you want to. What do you do with that immediate experience of rage, of whatever has triggered that for you?
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Spend much time I don't feel like I spend enough time in that space, because once I get to that space, I have this immediate knee-jerk reaction of compassion. So when I begin to feel upset about something, I rationalize and I say, well, probably because this.
You go to your head.
Yeah, probably because of that. So I don't spend a lot of time in that space. I think that, and I can't think of what happens. Every once in a while, the space that it is sort of like a white, this cool feeling. It's quickly replaced by rationalizing and saying, well, probably this, or compassion or whatever. But it's probably head, and it's probably like a light has come on. So if it was like somatic, people want to talk about the parts of the body. Yes. For me, it would be head, just sort of, yeah. But like sometimes things happen. I think the most upset I've ever been, like, in my life was when we were hearing about kids being in cages this long time ago, and somebody had pulled up a recording of so it was sort of like an audio, like hearing this thing. And this thing was happening to these children, and there was no place to go with the feelings in terms of compassion, because it seemed like the policy was terrible, but then there were people acting it out, and who's going to act this out? So there was just no room to go with it. I just had to feel it.
To feel it.
Yeah, so I think it's more clearing, or I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it would be more like a head thing, quickly usually followed by other emotions. because I think the other emotion under that was like a helplessness. Like you
Ah,
really can't do anything. You're not anywhere near there. So, that's it sort of goes to another emotion.
yeah. Thank you for
Helplessness or
noting that.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't really like the way I'm going to say this, but there's something that feels so awful about feeling so
Yeah, no,
helpless at
I'm
that
not
point,
into
isn't it?
it.
It just, no,
It takes
you're
up
not
too much
into
space.
it. No, you're
I
not
would
into
rather
it.
read or something. It's
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It just no one has time
Mm,
for it. But yeah, I'm telling other people to feel right.
mm,
So I need to
right on.
be better
Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. So the last question, and you actually wrote this question
Mm.
upon my request. And I just want to tell you the way you wrote the question, let me find it. The question, I could ask you this: what
Okay.
brings you hope? But
Hmm.
that's not what you wrote.
Okay.
You wrote, what, if anything,
Mm.
brings you hope?
Yeah.
And that really got my attention because I could then imagine at
Hmm.
times that you're struggling to find hope.
Yeah. That's
So,
that's
what, if
probably
anything,
what happened.
brings
Yeah.
Gabrie'l Atchison hope?
I think that I talked about it's the woman that was in our group. If I had not seen that, I don't think I would have had, hope about this work of anti-racism. And a lot of the times I don't do the work of anti-racism directly like I did on Saturday. Just because I feel like everybody's this wall, nobody's going to listen to me. But then when I think about this woman, it helps me, to have that this is possible. It takes a lot of work and very controlled setting and stuff like that, but it did happen, and so that gives me the hope when I'm having it. And the other part that I did talk about was the young people, and just the way that they think,
Hmm.
um, and the way that they engage with each other in the world. That gives me a lot of hope. If we can be, as educators, as parents, to allow them or to nurture that flexibility, be somewhere. Yeah, those are the things that most of the time I do feel hopeful, but sometimes, yeah, it feels like this isn't, what are we doing? Why are
Right.
we out here trying when so much stuff against us? But yeah, for the most part, those are the things. Just that one woman's
Mm.
transformation and yeah, the young people.
Wow, that's great. Well, Gabrie'l, where can people find this very affordable monthly subscription to get all your goodies?
Yes. So it's on Substack. My page is Introvert Coffee House. You go to Substack and look that up. You will find it. And I shouldn't say this, but you can read for free. And then if you want the extra
Hmm.
perks, you can subscribe. Yeah.
And I recently subscribed, and then today it was an email in my box that I hadn't seen that I could send a month's subscription to 3 people.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was got so jazzed about that. So I sent it to my
Awesome.
daughter-in-law,
Thank you.
I
Yes.
sent it to my wife, and I sent it to my nephew, who I had a great conversation with last night. And we were talking about doing this podcast this evening.
Hmm.
So that was just really,
Yeah, and I
that was so
appreciate it.
cool. Oh,
Yes.
it was so
Awesome.
much fun.
Yeah,
So much fun.
it's
I
good
mean,
writing.
folks, it's like, I don't want to shame anybody into, it's only $4.97, I think.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, Yeah. Good luck on getting a half a sandwich for that. Well, it's been a gift. This has been a gift.
Hmm.
Anything else that you want to draw attention to, or you want to loop back and say a little bit more about this or about that?
No,
Anything at all?
there's nothing I can think of, but thank you for inviting me.
I guess this is kind of putting you on the spot, but why not? You want to do this again?
Yeah, I would love to do this again.
I would too.
Yeah.
All right. Bless you. Thank you, and thank you to Jack. He was a
He
good
was
boy tonight.
wonderful. Yeah, so give a treat or something later.
You got to give him a treat.
Yeah.
He was a good boy. Bless you and thank you,
All
Gabrie'l.
right. Thank you again.